Well, if you look at these, so when you look at all these different cultures that talk about the sun gods, they talk about them bringing a lot of aspects to their society, engineering, mathematics, and all this stuff. But and to have altered the path of the genetic of our planet. But as well, they talk about them bringing very powerful objects. One specific object that's kind of described in many different cultures in different ways. One that comes to mind that's most ancient is from the Babylonian plates and from the Sumerian creative myth. From these plates talks about the sun gods coming to the top of the mountain and the high priest going up to the mountain and the sun gods giving them what they called the black sun, or the black stone eventually, as it was translated, what I believe is actually eventually found in the Quran as the black stone that's supposed to be in the middle of Mecca, in the Kaaba, in the middle of Mecca. And this object, which actually, if you research all these different cultures again, may explain why they were called the sun gods, because these objects seem to radiate like a sun, but have qualities that were very powerful. It seemed to be the center of the gods, the center of the sun gods' culture. It seemed to be the center of their craft, the power source of their craft. And it's given to man to bring us to new levels of understanding and technology to help us along our path. And in all these cultures, it seems that a whole civilization is developed out of it. In the Bible, it's actually the culture that developed before the Great Flood, where, very advanced organizations are put together, and that in cultures, various cultures, this earlier evolution is described, where they have capability to fly in the sky. They have all sorts of powers that are not common to this evolution, and so on. And in the books of Plato, it's described as the world of Atlantis, where they have all these really powerful technological capability that are all centered around this object that, is described in various ways as some kind of crystalline structure that produces high levels of radiation that you have to shield yourself from, that you have to handle it very, very carefully, but that can help you lift very large object, that can make you split water, stop the course of water in a river, open a lake in half, open a sea, and it becomes something that you can actually, this object, or the legend about this object, is something you can start to follow through history. And most likely there was many of them on the earth at the time in this previous evolution, which again in all of these cultures is said to have ended with a great flood, a great catastrophe. And you can imagine that if you brought something that powerful to a culture that is not quite ready for, the experiment could go awry. That is, people would may start getting greedy, may start trying to use it for destructive power, and so on. And this is kind of what you get, the sense you get from studying all these cultures, that previous evolution had been given this power from the sun gods and developed very, very quickly to very advanced, but had, difficulties in their level of consciousness to be able to truly live at that level of technological advancement. And it is appropriate, and I think it is conclusive when you read all those texts, that the sun gods may have thought, we need to remove this object from this planet. We need to take it back and let them evolve, learn about technology, learn about physics, learn about wars and what destruction does, and without this power, so that they would get the maturity necessary to actually come back to this level of technology eventually. And I think that this natural cataclysm of the Great Flood, which might have been the meltdown of the last ice age, give them an opportunity to throw human consciousness and our evolution back in time, if you'd like, in our evolution, back into the dark ages, almost back to the caves, and give us an opportunity to grow and to mature before we regain this power. And as they did so, they left all of the information and some of the devices under very specific conditions on the planet, so that we could recover the information eventually. And so I followed the link. And eventually, in the case of the Egyptian, I found that it went from the Egyptian tradition. In the Egyptian tradition, it's represented as a sphere with wings. And the wings is because it can fly, it can hover, it has gravitational capability. And it's related to the sun, Ra, and it's represented on top of all the temple, at the entrance of all the temple. And that is why the sun gods were called sun gods. It's not because they venerated our physical sun, it's because their power came from an object that resembled a sun, a very radiant object.